can't.
So Steve is going to join us. He's just in zoning and they're talking about the BLT project. So I'm going to text him when we're ready for him to join. And if he can't join, I'll give a couple updates. But if he can, then he's going to come over from zoning.
And I see we have some redevelopment business. Do we have someone from redevelopment with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Great.
You're all set, John, if you want to get started.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sabrina, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Committee of the Common Council. We will call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. And we do a roll call. Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Keegan?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Myself, John Kites, is present. I believe that is everybody, correct? For right now?
Yes.
Okay. And now we're just going to go right into the public hearing for the PY46 FY20 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, the CAPER, for submission to HUD. Sabrina, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
We do not.
Okay. All right. So we will now close the public hearing and then open this up to public participation. Do we have anyone that's present to speak, who has raised their hand for
Nope.
public participation? No?
We have no one.
Okay. All right, and then first order of business is the approval of the minutes from August 5th, 2021 meeting. Any corrections to those minutes before I make a motion? Hearing none. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from August 5th, 2021, please raise your hand and signify yes. Okay, and abstentions? Let the record show Ms. Smith abstained. All right, now down to new business, and that's redevelopment. Item 2A, advance the PY46 CAPER to the Common Council with authorization for the mayor to sign all forwarding documentation required by HUD. And who do we have with us this evening to speak to that?
Here, it's Stephen from the Redevelopment Agency.
Hi, Stephen.
So this is the PY46 CAPER. This is our yearly report to HUD at the end of our program year. The program year is the 2020 program year, going from June 30th of 2020 to July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021. This may seem like it's coming back around pretty quickly because the PY45 CAPER had a 180-day extension before it was due, but we're back on the regular schedule. We are currently in the public comment period that started on the 24th and will end on the 10th. And we haven't received any comments so far. We have some highlighted information on the resource narrative of the memo, as well as some con plan objectives and strategies that list some percentages of what we've achieved for the year. And just note that this is the first year of the 5-year consolidated plan. So if it looks a little bit different than the last memo that was sent in, or the last set of information, there are no previous years to total for the con plan. So this is just for the first year of the con plan and action plan, and then subsequent memos and CAPERs will have some cumulative information relating to the goals set in the con plan.
Anybody have any questions for Kevin?
Yeah.
Stephen, excuse me. Mr. Livingston?
Yeah, if I could. So just a couple of questions. So I'm looking at this and I see, and this may just be a timing issue, this improved public infrastructure has, 1,580% of goals. Is that, how do you think about that?
1 second, let me get to the page for that. I have it right in front of me. So part of what happens with these and why some of the statistics lie a tiny bit is that when an area benefit occurs, it counts everybody it counts the entire population of Norwalk, because there's not a direct beneficiary. This could be parks or other facility improvements that might help people. Like the Carver Center is a community center where there's public access to it, and they can, depending on what they're doing, considered a public benefit. So the con plan seek to help over the period of 5 years 27,500 people. So this is kind of a technicality of why it appears like that, but there was within the year improvements that were considered an area of benefit and counts, the listed population of 86,000 people as beneficiaries. So that's why it's for the first year coming up as
So it's kind of a fluke of the methodology, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. The other question I had is, I guess on page 14 and 15, you have some stuff highlighted in yellow. Is there a reason for that? I think it's you highlighted it.
It might just be an error from the we worked with a consultant to produce this, so it might have just not been removed from a comment section. I don't think there's any.
Okay, nothing that we're supposed to focus on there.
No, it was just left in there by mistake.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Stephen? Okay. All right. Now we'll call for. I'm sorry.
I
Oh.
have, I'm
I
sorry,
hear you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Of course, Mr. Keegan.
That's okay. Stephen, under affordable housing, you list number of homeless households to be provided affordable housing units, 1-year goal of 130, and actually, I guess you helped 12. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 1-year goal there of 130 is again dependent on what the con plan had presented, and with the selection and input from subrecipients for the year, the total units that we had that were assisted were the 12 units from the Open Door Shelter, who made physical improvements to 3 of their houses that they had. And so to combat this difference, the recommendation for future plans, notably PY 48, since the PY 47 plan has been submitted already, would be for members to give feedback or potentially prioritize selection of homeless shelter units or units and projects that are targeting homeless units for physical improvements.
And the only other question I have is the number of homeless people identified in the city included were 19 children. I'm hoping, is that a priority for us?
Which page are you looking on?
I wish I knew. Hold on a sec. It's under that 1415, if I'm not mistaken. If there are any other questions, I'll find it. And then if Mr. Kites will allow me, I'll come back to him. But I did read where it said 19 children were identified as homeless in the city. Where the heck is that? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, page
It's
17.
on page 17 under CR 25. And it says a homeless point in time survey count of homeless persons. In Norwalk, there were 140 people experiencing homelessness and 19 were children. It's like the 5th paragraph.
Yep. So these were numbers that were provided by the consultant that were required to use for the consolidated plan, and these are being pulled from the consolidated plan to keep us in line with our annual goals. So at the time that they had assessed the homeless population in Norwalk, that's what it was determined to be. And I don't believe the CAPER has exact information on like those specific 19 children. It's something that we can look into, and addressing the homeless needs within Norwalk is a priority goal within the con plan. And again, just from the difference in the 130 people and the 12 people assisted, the recommendation is to, in future plans, target subrecipients and organizations who are seeking to provide affordable, housing units to the homeless.
I would hope that whomever is responsible for this would make homeless children and the families the priority, however that must be undertaken. That's my statement, and I'm hoping it's yours as well. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving this to
You
the
want to
council?
motion? You want to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Does someone like to move that? Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
All in favor? Well, looks to be unanimous. Great. Thank you, Stephen.
I appreciate it, everybody. Have a nice night.
You too.
You too. Okay, moving on, we have Business and Development and Tourism is reviewed the Arts Commission's MLK Corridor Arts Projects. Sabrina, will you be speaking to that?
I will, but do you want Steve to go first so that he can go to the other meeting?
Is he here?
Yeah, he's here now. He just got on.
If there are no objections from the committee, I will now move Mr. Kleppen up. Item D, and that's the update on industrial zone study and the waterfront study. All right, seeing none, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a zoning commission meeting, so thank you for accommodating my schedule. And I'll be very brief. I was going to offer up to come back next month and give you a more detailed presentation, specifically on the industrial zones part, because the draft plan should be out for public review next week. The committee met last week to look at the draft plan and had several comments and questions. So the consultant's making edits as directed, and hopefully has those turned around next week, and we can put that out for public review and public comment. Kind of the long and the short of it, just based on some, I guess, key takeaways, and I'll definitely go through this in more detail, is that what we tried to do and what I think we did was kind of define the types of industrial uses and where they should go, including where contractor yards can go, and defining the different types of contractors, because there's obviously not all contractors are the same. Some are earth processing yards with lots of machinery that sometimes neighbors find objectionable, but sometimes they can be simply somebody who has 3 or 4 plumbing trucks and has some related materials with that. So we tried to right size each of those. I think as part of that, we redefined a lot of the zoning boundaries of where the industrial zone should be. Not everybody's going to be happy with that, just based on, sometimes their land designation, zoning designation is going to change. But we think there's good reasoning why we're recommending these changes. But, those are also subject to public comment and, obviously public hearing. And also looked at ways is there the possibility to add more kind of industrial job growth in the city, and what's curtailing that now in terms of the land use policies that are in place. So there are recommendations on doing some changes for that. And we also looked at the areas where those types of uses should go. I think those are the big picture changes related to the plan. And I think what it'll have is kind of some detailed recommendations along with that. So that way, when we get to the implementation stage of changing the zoning specifically to that those changes have been reviewed and the process is much quicker going forward. Related to the waterfront study, that's kind of just kicking off now. The consultant was just down at the beginning of this week touring the area in detail. And we had today, I think, 4 separate interviews with different stakeholder groups. And we had a bunch yesterday as well. And we're talking to, the good thing is the study area for this is not really large. So we're talking with the majority of the property owners in that area and the business owners. So we're trying to get a sense of, what's working for you, what's not working for you, what would you like the area to be if we introduce some different uses in there? Would that conflict with your business? Would it help your business? how do we get public access to the water? Is it possible in certain locations? And one thing we're kind of finding out, kind of like some quick takeaways just from those initial conversations, is that there are, and this comes from a lot of the different users, that the siltation and the need to dredge the harbor in the river is pretty significant for all users, and that's becoming more problematic and more expensive as time goes by. And so we're also talking with folks on that do water quality monitoring in the river. And so why are we seeing some of these problems, and what are some of the practices and steps we can take to improve water quality along with that? So it's kind of looking at lots of different facets to this to try to factor in the best plan to go forward for this part of the waterfront.
Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. So Steve, I want to make sure I understand what you just said, because if we're looking at the waterfront, which I think many of us consider an asset of the city as a whole and the whole population, but yet from what you said, it sounds like you're asking the property owners, who clearly have rights, of course, for what they think. But are you going to be making a broader inquiry of the population of the city? Because I hate to think that they were dictating the use solely by, that they own property there. I know it's important. I don't want to minimize their ownership interest, but I do think this is a tremendous asset for the city that we need to consider as we move forward.
Right. So that's definitely, there's several opportunities, and there'll be several public meetings along the way. As I mentioned, the consultants just kind of at the beginning stage of this, so they're just learning the properties, learning the uses, learning what's actually happening on the ground there, in the water, I should say there. So those are kind of the first steps that have to happen before they can do any kind of next steps with the public. But yeah, we understand that there's a tremendous need to A, protect the water, and B, interest the public getting access to the water whenever possible. So we have to try to, the majority of this area outside of the town parcels that are there, it's private property. So, how do we make sure we get access to it? As some of these redevelop, we would require that there be, public access which goes along with any of the new developments. But until that happens, are there other steps we can do to try to, make inroads along that area?
Yeah, clearly. I just thought I heard you say that we're going to basically ask them what they think but it's a much bigger question, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's like I said, we're trying to interview as many of the stakeholders who are actually the people that own the properties and operate the businesses or live in that area. So we're talking to them first, and then kind of the goals of the study, as I mentioned, trying to, looking at it from an economic development standpoint. Yesterday we talked to some of the rowing clubs, I think 3 or 4 of them, and we talked to them about what they're seeing, and is there a way to enhance the rowing capabilities as an economic driver for the city? Are there ways to do that in terms of special events to coordinate? So those are some of the kind of questions we're trying to get at. So there's several prongs to it.
And will you be including members of the council in your discussions?
In terms of at what point or what?
I mean, you're having the consultant speak with the council members.
I hadn't planned on them talking to the entire council. Ms. Young and Mr. Kites are presently sitting on that committee that's overseeing the study. So kind of the idea is that there's representatives from planning, there's representatives from zoning. You also have 2 council members, so you have the input, and that they can obviously report back to you and get your feedback.
I think the more input from councils, the better from my perspective. My 2 cents.
Like Steve, you touched on it. I mean, I definitely would like you to come back, as you mentioned, as Darlene and I are part of this subcommittee that's been working on this. I mean, we spent, I don't know, what was it, Steve, 2 hours at our last meeting getting into the weeds about everything. And I think the planning committee deserves that same information, even if maybe it may not be 2 hours, but I want to definitely keep the planning committee as involved as possible in this process. And so perhaps we can put this on the planning meeting agenda for next month as well. And keep us, updated on what's going on.
Yeah, certainly. I didn't want to go through it tonight and show you what was already looked at, since some of it's going to change, so that, once it's out in the public domain, I'd rather have it be the draft that everyone's looking at versus something that's, not the final product, or the final draft, I should say.
Okay. That sound good, Tom?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions for Tom? Excuse me, for Stephen? Any hands up? Okay, I look forward to continuing this at the next meeting, Steve, and I'll let you go on to your planning and zoning meeting.
Okay,
Sure.
thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, all right, now we're just gonna back up a little bit, and now we're gonna do review of the Arts Commission and the MLK Corridor Arts Program. Sabrina?
Yep, this will be me. Let me share my screen for you guys. So can you all see my screen? All good?
Yes.
Okay. So in last fiscal year, so 2021, the Common Council authorized a capital budget line item for the Arts Commission for the first time in its established history. It was for $50,000 to commission public art in the MLK corridor to further supplement the city's initiatives and also the state initiatives surrounding the MLK corridor neighborhood improvements. Once the funding was awarded, the commission formed a subcommittee of the commission itself to focus specifically on this project and the capital budget line item. Their first activity as this group formed was to hire a curator for the project that would be able to walk it through the process, but also that was into number one with the neighborhood and its community, but number two, have interest in the arts community itself and be able to really navigate this process through the city, like somebody who's done this in the past. They chose Julio Pardo, who you might have heard was on the Ryan Park Arts projects. He is a resident of the community and is very in tune with a lot of artists that are both local and international, national. So he really had a large breadth of knowledge, not only of the neighborhood itself, but also from the arts perspective. So with that committee input, the committee and Julio went through the neighborhood, the designated geography, which Jess, I believe, showed you last meeting, that basically goes from I-95 all the way south to almost the bottom border where Wilson and MLK kind of meet, and almost all the way to the water on the other side. So they took a little tour through the neighborhood and identified areas where they felt that arts would really not only, be a neighborhood beautification project, but also really be able to bring the community together through art and make a great pedestrian experience for anybody who wants to come and either lives in Norwalk or visits Norwalk and visits the neighborhood. So after he did that, he identified about 27 locations. Obviously, with the funding available, 27 was not a feasible amount of projects that we could undertake with this first swath, but they prioritized two separate locations. So the first one that you're looking at is the stairs, which you may remember were redone, I believe, 4 years ago now through the redevelopment agency and the city's partnership to make the stairs heated. These are the ones that come down towards the South Norwalk train station. There's two sets of these stairs, the other one slated for improvement, and we're hoping to also do those at some point in time. But the commission's first priority was this set of stairs, considering they were already refurbished and they are basically ready for art on them. The second location was the pumping station, which is at the joint of Wilson and MLK. So it's really the gateway entry point that goes into the southern half of MLK, the northern entry point really being the transition from West Avenue to MLK on the northern side. We're also hoping to do a larger piece there in the future, but again, we're taking, very small piece of this very large project. So these were the two sites that were selected, and I'll talk about a little bit about the process in a little bit as well. So essentially what Julio did after they took the tour and identified with the commission specific locations for installments, He then essentially picked and prioritized those 2 locations, sent that out to his artist contacts and both locally as a kind of request for proposals to introduce everyone to the project, but also introduce them to the locations. He also facilitated a cleanup with the artists and with the community so that he can not only talk about the project, but also kind of showcase where the pieces were actually going to hopefully be installed. So after that was completed, the artists would then submit physical proposals for the locations. We received about 8 proposals from 8 different artists. Each of them submitted for both of the for the pumping station location, but not for the stairs. We only had a single submission for the stairs, but we got some interesting submissions from all over the world, both Germany, Puerto Rico, California, Norwalk, Bridgeport, Stanford. So kind of a large reach of artists, which I thought was really awesome. After that, the Arts Commission in Julio facilitated a gallery of sorts to showcase the submissions to the public on Washington Street. The public was invited to come, have a few beverages, talk about the art, really get to meet the artists and see what their vision was for these specific projects. And after that was completed, we got community input. The commission came back and worked with Julio to kind of prioritize which artists they felt had the best vision, number 1, but number 2, had a good sense of community and also connections to the community. And Lauren Clayton was the artist that was selected. So her family is originally from Norwalk, from the neighborhood. She has since moved to Stanford, but her family is still here. Strong roots within the community. Her messaging for both pieces is very foot forward, I would say. This piece that's on the screen now is basically saying that the promised land is where we're all centered on an equal playing field, on fertile ground where we can all move and grow together as a community. And the first one depicts a quote from Martin Luther King himself, which basically is emphasizing that you need to take the first step, even though you don't really see everything in front of you, take the first step towards your goals. So very, big picture, connected to Martin Luther King in different ways, but also connecting to the community in different ways. And what really set Lauren out from others was that she has an aspect of her installation that involves the community. So what she does is she'll digitally print kind of a stencil of sorts that will be affixed to the stairs. And then members of the community can actually come on the day of and essentially paint by numbers. So she'll be there obviously to facilitate and make the piece cohesive at the end of all of this. But, children from the community, adults from the community, anybody in Norwalk that wanted to come and kind of help install the piece is welcome to come do so. So that was what really kind of set her out amongst the crowd. So those are the 2 pieces that are both going to cost around $30,000 together. We had a $50,000 budget. That's 30,000 of it. And then the other piece of it really went to community outreach. And then the last and final piece is actually going to be a set of 4 traffic graphic boxes. I'm sure you're all familiar with the traffic graphic program through the neighborhood improvement team. So basically it's $1,000 and you can install art on the utility box. All 4 of them have been painted black and replaced with black canvas boxes at this point in time. And with the remaining funding, we're hoping to do the 4 boxes, but only with students from the community. So elementary school students or high school students, middle school students that have an interest in doing this would be able to not only one student do 1 box, but have multiple students be able to contribute to each box surrounding the theme of Martin Luther King, whether that be in a physical sense or more in a community-based sense, whether that's somebody that they look up to in their own community or it's somebody else who's impacted them in a way in their life, but really letting them take the reign on that project as well. So there's kind of multifaceted ways the commission has been able to deploy this funding. And I just wanted to come back to you guys to report back, but also to invite you to participate. And if you don't want to participate, you can also come to the ribbon cutting, which we're hoping will be in November. In 2 weeks from now, she should be able to get started. And then it takes 3 weeks for installation. So that's kind of our timeline going forward. And as one of the first arts projects that the city has commissioned, I think it's going to be just a great a great thing for the community in general, and also for the council and the city as a first stab at all of this. So thanks.
Sabrina, wasn't there money coming in via a grant that redevelopment applied for that area specifically? I don't know. I remember hearing that it was secured or it was.
Yeah, so Jess may be able to speak a little bit more to it, but the state funded the city $3 million for the MLK corridor, not just for art, but for a multitude of things regarding, community improvements, road improvements, homeowner improvements, entrepreneurship, all those different kinds of facets that were prioritized by the community at the outset of the initiative. A portion of that funding is going to go to the arts, but it's not all going to that.
more so like infrastructure and
not just infrastructure, more smaller programming that's not just art.
Okay, great. Any questions? I don't know if anyone else is hearing an echo, but I am. Any questions for Sabrina?
It's Barbara. I have no questions, but I just one of the questions I had was already answered. I was curious as to whether or not Lauren had roots here in Norwalk. So I'm really glad to hear that is the case. That her family is here, and the art is beautiful. I mean, that mural is just extraordinary, and I think it'll look really beautiful and welcoming, and it's just beautiful. So it's really well done. I love the idea of bringing the students to paint the boxes and including the community. It's beautiful. So really well done, and kudos to Julio.
Yeah, I agree. This is terrific.
It is great. I wish that Darlene was here to hear this, but seeing that she's not, it has members of the
I'm on, John. I've heard it before.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of what's going on and played a role in getting to this.
I'm on the MLK committee. I sit on every committee on the MLK. So I saw this presentation. When did you just show this, Sabrina? I don't even remember. Was it Monday, Tuesday?
It was Tuesday, I believe. Yep.
Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, just want to make sure you're in the loop. Okay, and let the record show Ms. Young has joined us as well. All right, any other questions for Sabrina? No? Okay, great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Now moving on to item C, and that is first up is the update on the Rowayton Sidewalk project. You have anything to report on that?
Hi, everybody. It's Jess Vonachek here. I wanted to just let you know that we did actually sign the contract today to work with VHB for the Rowayton sidewalks, and though that is from Wilson up Route 136 north to Rowayton Ave and then up to the train station. But I know you voted on it last month, so we just wanted to give you a quick update that that's moving along. We anticipate having design and concepts for the public to look at by the end of the calendar year, and then we'll be moving forward after that. And of course, if you remember, we had advanced right to concept and design because Route 136 is a state road, so they'll need that to be able to have us move forward. So just wanted to provide you with a quick update.
Okay. Tom, you got any questions for that? Anybody?
No, I they've kept me in the loop. I think it's terrific, and thank you again for doing all that.
Okay. All right, I see no other hands. Okay, so why don't we get over to the update on the transportation master plan?
Yeah, so Mike can fill in any gaps that I leave out, but we're working with FHI to move forward the transportation master plan. And of course, the last plan we did was in 2012. So we're really looking forward to getting off the ground with this new plan. We had our first technical advisory group meeting this afternoon, and I just wanted to let everybody know that we're going to be scheduling lots of community meetings in each of the neighborhoods, and we really encourage everyone to get involved and provide feedback and comments to us so that we're able to incorporate all of them into the transportation master plan. We anticipate a 14 to 16 month timeline for that plan. And so it will be a little bit of a longer plan, but again, we're really looking forward to being able to address some of the long-term systemic transportation issues in the city. We talked a lot about climate change and resiliency. We also talked about adaptive signals. We talked about pedestrian safety and walkability. And we also talked about ensuring that that the streets are safe for all users and looking at complete streets. So it was a really great conversation today. And Mike, please fill in if I left out any gaps.
No, I think you covered most of it, Jess. The only other thing I want to bring to your attention is that we do have an electronic survey that'll be going up and posted that we hoping people will fill out. So if, we'll send information to you once it gets published, and hopefully you can share it with all other members of the council and committees and the general public. And we're looking for the response to that.
Okay. You mentioned a plan that could look into the future, and as soon as we have a viable vetted plan in front of us, it'd be nice to see the implementation of that plan, from one mayor to another, to one council to another, to one director to another. I think that's where the city's always fell short in circumstances with. So my hope is that maybe we could put this together and actually implement it and have it outlive all of us. Any other questions for in regards to the transportation master plan?
Jessica, I just have a question, and forgive me if I missed that you might have said something about it, but will you also be looking at more like public transportation? Because you did mention, climate change and everything. And, I think that with the idea of moving people more towards using some kind of public transportation would be really beneficial looking towards the future.
Absolutely. And you didn't miss it because I did not mention it, but it's an absolutely wonderful point. We had the transit district on the technical advisory group meeting today, and we were talking a lot about microtransit and a lot about the bus route system and a lot about bus stops and the regional importance and how the transit district provides service in Westport as well as other communities that are surrounding. So we talked a lot about that. We also talked a lot about not only first and last mile, which is important to the train station, but also ensuring that people are able to get to their places of employment, and that we need to really understand where those places of employment are and being able to really support the community and being able to get to those jobs. So we talked not only about all of the buzzwords that we sometimes hear about, where we talked about some of the equity issues with transportation and some of the equity issues with public transit. The other folks that were on the technical advisory group were really great. We had someone from the state who was extremely active on the call, and he's a fantastic advocate for public transportation as well as just transportation in general. But it was really helpful to have that state perspective, and knowing that a lot of the roads in Norwalk are state jurisdiction. It was great to be able to have perspective there. And we also had someone from WestCog on the call as well. And she, again, was very active. She was great in the sense of really being able to promote the importance of not only TOD, but public transportation, and really stating the point that we need to think long and hard about how to really balance what transportation modes look like, and really start to think about how to move people out of vehicles into other alternate modes of transportation. So that was one of the things that she spoke about.
Thanks. Good news.
Yes, absolutely.
Are members of, employees of DPW involved in this master plan? And to what if yes, to what extent?
Yeah, Mike, can you name some of the folks from City Hall, specifically DPW, who are on the advisory group?
Sure, we have Anthony Carr is on it, and Vanessa Valadares. They were unable to attend the meeting today, but they are in the advisory committee.
Oh, that's great. Good to know. Okay, any other questions? Speak up. I can't see all your hands. Okay. If there are no objections, we would like to touch on another subject, and that's the small business program. Jessica would like to, I guess, has a small deck of, for us to look at and go over. So if there are no objections, we will begin that now. There you go.
Great, there we go. Do you mind if I give one other update that I think your committee might be interested in hearing about? It's something that we released just a few week or so ago, actually, but it is the Wall Street RFP. So the TMP team put out an RFP to look at the Wall Street between Belden, Mott, and Wall, and also Main Street. As you know, the LOCSIP grant is moving forward this fall between Main and Brook, which will address reconstruction of the roadways and reconstruction of the sidewalks and historical lighting. But that means that between Mott and Belden and Wall and Main Street, we have yet to address that. So the RFP looks at not only transportation and mobility and connectivity through that area, but also economic development. We've asked that the consultants look at, that are interested in responding to the RFP, we've asked them to look at streetscape. We've asked them to look at Wall Street to Main, Main up to Burnell, including River Street, and then over to Belden. So really that big, the block in, the block area in Wall Street, and just really excited to be able to, know that the team is going to be looking at that and knowing that we're kicking it off. We were able to meet up with prospective consultants about a week and a half ago to walk the area. We gave them a tour of the area so that they knew what they were responding to. And we had over 19 people show up to that meeting from 10 different companies. So we were really excited to be able to get that traction from the consultants to be able to look at that area. So I just wanted to really quickly flag that for you as well, because that's something that we'll be bringing to planning as it moves along.
Great.
So Main Street Small Business Program. Thank you for allowing me to share some of the team's progress with you in this area. As you know, our strategy for the city is to increase quality of life, and we do that through identifying, creating, and investing in communities, and basically trying to make sure that the neighborhoods are lifted up and that those neighborhoods are attractive to folks that would like to visit and move into the city, knowing that when residents move into the city with certain skill sets, that we attract business. So we've been using that model for the last number of years, far before I came on board. But I wanted to really highlight what we launched a number of years ago. I can say a number of years ago now, but it was really November 2019. And just as a heads up and sort of to recap where we started, I think as of September 2019, that's really when economic and community development kicked off. And when Sabrina and I first started here at the city, we had $100,000 in our first year, fiscal year budget. And so we were really excited to be able to get moving. And in November, we launched a small business and Main Street program with $150,000. And so in total, we had $165,000 to be able to spend on this program. And it was really a pilot program for the city, something that we hadn't seen before. And, not only have we been able to identify the small business Main Street program, but we've also been able to leverage different budgets to be able to move some of these efforts forward. And so when we launched the small business Main Street program, we included a number of different initiatives in that. We have 6 in total, and you can see them listed here, everything from storefront facade programs to holiday and seasonal decorations. We were able to do business support for COVID. And then we did some public art as well. And I think, more than anything, we just really wanted to highlight the last couple of years of effort and show you what we've been able to achieve, knowing that we have approximately $200,000 in the small business Main Street program pot of money for this year to be able to spend down. We wanted to showcase what we've done and also get your feedback. So the storefront facade program is a new program that the city launched. We put $50,000 into a pot to be able to encourage businesses and property owners within the commercial corridors to make improvements. And really what this comes down to is that if the city puts in $50,000, then the match needed to be $50,000 from the businesses. So $50,000 from the city got us $100,000 plus of improvements across the city. And so these are just examples of those improvements that we've seen. So 64 Wall Street, we helped Hair Tech Beauty and Barber Academy, Cafe Aroma. Paul from Cafe Aroma had originally had his storefront, which of course was Cafe Aroma, and then he was able to buy the storefront next to him, but he didn't have the capital to be able to make the improvements. So we've been able to help him out there. Costa Jewelers, which just looks like a completely different storefront. Garden Catering, which we not only help them do signage on the facade of their building, but also help them do signage as well on the street sign. So we, just going back, we have, we've been able to expend the first $58,000 for the program, and we are launching $50,000 for this fiscal year for the storefront improvement program. We already have 4 businesses that have applied for the actual grant, and of course it's a matching grant, as I mentioned. And we do it in different phases. So you can get either $2,500 match, a $5,000 match, or a $10,000 match. And it just depends on the level of work that's being done on the storefront. So if it's a $10,000 match, that would include more structural work with window and door replacements, whereas a $2,500 match would include things like planters, signage, lighting, something of a smaller scale. It's a first come, first serve program, but we wanted to mention it because we feel as though it's made big changes for the street front, but we also have additional funding in the pot for this year, and we're encouraging small businesses to be able to apply to that. So we will be putting out a press release, but we wanted to flag it for you.
Hey, Jess, on that, if somebody were to get the grant and then sell the building the next year, I mean, do they get the money free and clear, or is there any obligation to pay back the city, or what?
No, they get the money free and clear because the improvement has been made for the street front, right? So it's not as though they would be able to take the asset with them.
Got it. So, okay.
Yes, it's Tom. I've got one question. What about, this is all like exterior improvements. What about improvements to like the infrastructure of the building, say air conditioning or something like that? Would that qualify or no?
So we haven't, this is just a basic facade program. So we haven't gotten into the interior of the building, the HVAC, the mechanical. I think that for a program like that, Tom, we probably need a lot more funding than the 50,000. I think even just one of those jobs could be 50,000 or more, depending on if it's an HVAC system for the building or not. Definitely something we could talk about, but this program is not for interior work, just the exterior work and just the facade work that's on the street front.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so moving forward, we had a lot of feedback on frustration with the businesses and frustration with the restaurants and residents on garbage cans. So especially in the Wall Street area. And I think that there was a set of garbage cans that were out there, but the lids were consistently falling off the top and the garbage was blowing off the top of the can into the street and so on and so forth. So we were able to work in coordination with DPW to be able to order and install 24 new sets of garbage receptacles, which include a garbage can and also a recycling bin next to it. We focused on Washington Street, North and South Main Street, and also Wall Street. And one of the things that we were able to do was, if you've noticed before, there was some older advertising going on some garbage cans that were in and around the pulse point. We were able to remove those to create a consistent consistency on the streetscape with these updated garbage cans. And it's it seems like such a simple installation, and yet we've actually heard multiple people comment on how grateful they are that the new garbage cans look nice, that they have a lid that doesn't fall off, that city carting can actually pick up the garbage very easily. The older cans were a little bit more challenging. And so, you know, again, just something that's actually a really fairly simple installation that seems to have a very large impact on people in the neighborhood. So we're really happy with that. The older receptacles, we didn't want to get rid of them. We actually worked with DPW, and DPW spray painted the cans, and we're relocating them to Whistleville along Ely Avenue, Molloy, where there are no garbage cans currently. So, you know, we're also really pleased to be able to take some of the garbage cans that were existing in the area and reuse them in other places. So just again, another initiative that's fairly simple, but something that seems to have had a big impact on the street. And it's exactly what we were hoping for with the small business Main Street program.
Oh, great. You've been busy, Jess.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's really funny because until you put it all together, sometimes you don't really realize all the small initiatives that are going on that really, where we're trying to make a difference and how impactful they are. So really happy to be able to showcase these to you. One of the things we did do was we noticed, I had a family member come in from Chicago, and we were driving up Washington and down Wall Street, and the person said, I love Norwalk. It must look so fantastic during the holiday season when it's all lit up and there's lights and wreaths and everything everywhere. And I was saying, yeah, it would really look great with lights and wreaths everywhere. So we, again, this is really what the program is meant to do. So we were able to partner with Meticulous Landscaping, and we brought in holiday planters and lighting between the utility poles and wreaths and roping on the utility poles. And it just made a real difference for the holidays. And, it's something that we're going to continue doing. I think to a large extent, the lighting, people enjoyed the lighting so much that we ended up keeping it up through the outdoor dining season. And we're exploring more permanent installations for these things. These are really meant for the holiday season, December, January, and they've stayed up basically for almost a full year. So we're looking at a little bit more permanent installation of these, but again, just a small thing, but a lot of impact for being able to add that community spirit in and around the city.
And Jess, the lights are great, definitely, for sure. Just a quick question about the maintenance and the follow-up with specifically the lights, because I've noticed, and I'm not trying to rain on the parade in any way, shape, or form, but like a good stretch of those lights soon after installation did not function, and now currently they've been installed, there's quite a few more that aren't operational. Is there a follow-up? Is there money in the budget to maintain them and make sure they work? I mean, is there any oversight on any of that?
Yeah, so we didn't really realize that the outlets were not as strong as we needed them to be until we plugged the lights in. And then a couple of days later, we noticed they were blowing. So we've been working with SNU because those are SNU's lights and SNU's utility area. So we've been working with them to be able to identify how to address that for this holiday season. In a lot of cases, SNU is going to be replacing the lights in and around Washington. So that will help to address that. In other areas, we're going to have to be able to seek power in a different way or run a continuous string of lights so that we're not plugging into those outlets at the top of the street lights that are faulty. But if you see them, please let me know, or please let Sabrina know, or even David Shockley know. I know in some cases we had a strand or two fall, like just over time, the wind blew or whatever it happened to be, and a strand lost tact on the pole. So we went out and fixed them. But if you see, it's not raining on the parade, because I think that we want them to look nice, and they don't look nice if they're hanging down or if they're not lit and they look like they've been forgotten about. So I think,
I brought it up, but I understand when you have a third party, especially a utility company, it gets very complicated. Things are out of your hands. I mean, I've dealt with it in the past on many occasions where either it be Eversource or third taxing district, it's a whole other animal. But, yeah.
It is, but I do have to say, SNU's been really great. SNU's been really great to work with, and they've been a really great partner. And I'll showcase some of the work that we partnered with them on. But this is one of those examples. And I think that again, I think that maybe no one really knew if they were faulty or not until we actually plugged the lights in and saw what was going on, and actually saw that we also noticed that if the street light doesn't work, then the string of lights don't work either. So I think there's some correlation between that as well.
Yeah, we got the back bumper warranty there. Okay. Cool.
So another thing that we did with the small business Main Street program is we provided 30 Norwalk small businesses with $5,000 in COVID relief funds. And so we were able to hold a lottery where we had over 220 businesses actually respond. The 225 businesses went into a bucket, and we did an electronic pull of those. And so, although the $150,000 didn't hit all 225 people, we were able to put 75,000 from the Main Street program into the effort. And there was a special appropriation through BET for another $75,000. And so we were able to get that match. The great thing about this story is that 2/3 of the businesses that were awarded the COVID relief funds were women and minority owned businesses, which we were really pleased to see. So just again, want to thank this committee and want to thank the council for being able to provide us with the funds for the program, because this is what has allowed us to basically be able to be responsive to small businesses in times of need, where if we didn't have this program set up, then we probably wouldn't necessarily be able to bring forward the funds in order to be able to support. So I think just a really great effort there.
Hey, Jess, just on that one. So what do you have to show to get into the lottery, or did you have to show?
Yeah, so you needed to show that you had a loss. So you basically needed to submit all of your financial statements and show that you had a loss during COVID of a certain amount to be able to be eligible. And of course, if your name was pulled, then you weren't able to go back into the lottery. You could only be pulled once. In addition to that, we also ensured that everyone was paid up in taxes, that everyone was sorted with the city, so that we weren't offering funds and grants to folks that were behind in any of their taxes.
When you say show, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna follow up with your question. So when you say show, Jess, you mean financial, tax returns, things along those lines?
Yeah. We actually had them submit to the office to be able to ensure that they had seen a loss during COVID.
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, that's it. Thank you.
And thanks to Sabrina and Maritza for their good work, because they were the ones who were able to run through administratively and make sure that everyone had submitted their work, that everyone had paid their taxes. And, they did a great job with communications and being able to make sure that, working with the comptroller's office, all of the checks had been cut for these businesses. So really great team effort there. So this is actually a really cool effort that we had partnered up with DKA on for designing graphics. And, again, we spent $4,500 from the business development and tourism budget, and we created these really cool banners that basically have gone up in Wall Street, West Ave, Whistleville, and South Norwalk. And I don't know if you've seen them as of yet, but they're 48 inches tall, and I think 24 inches wide. I may not be getting the dimensions perfect, but we've put 35 of them up so far, and we have 35 of them to go. We partnered with SNU to be able to put them up in Whistleville and South Norwalk, and we also are working with DPW for Wall and West Ave. And they're just, they look really good. They're just bright banners that add a little bit of color to the street. And we're really excited to be able to use some of the funding to be able to brand the neighborhoods and really create that community vibe. So we did outdoor dining in 2020 in response to COVID, as you know, and we had the concrete barriers with DPW's help installed along Washington Street to allow for the expanded sidewalk area. And through partnership with the Arts Commission and also using some of the funds through the Main Street Small Business Program, we were able to do 4 different rounds of barrier covers that featured local custom artwork. And so, the concrete barriers were not ideal in the way they looked and the way that they functioned. However, it was a really great opportunity for us to be innovative and creative and being able to showcase some of the local artists' work and being able to partner with the Arts Commission to be able to showcase some of the work that's going on here. So the interesting thing is that now that the barriers are gone, we still actually have the barrier covers. We put them up for a special event that was going on in Wall Street a couple of weekends ago. We have them stored at the DPW Ops Center, and we'll continue to use them moving forward. So because they're banners, they're reusable, and it's just really great that we have them to be able to showcase them and be able to use them in different arenas. We've gotten a lot of interest on people wanting to secure them in one way, shape, or form. Can we use them? Can we put them up? Are you willing to sell them? What's going on with them? So it's been really great to be able to field all those calls where people have noticed them and they're really interested in continuing using them over time. So we just really wanted to showcase some of the progress that we've made through the Small Business Main Street program. And again, really just say thank you to the committee and thank you to the council to be able to support the work, because, you know, we're really trying to make difference at the street level and make a difference in the neighborhoods to be able to create that vibrancy and create the feeling and the vibe of people wanting to be able to live and visit Norwalk. And I think that through all of these pieces, we're, along with a lot of the blight work and a lot of the graffiti work and the neighborhood improvement work, you know, and as well as the landscaping, I think we're getting there. I think we're really starting to see the improvements that are being made. So for this next fiscal year, we're looking at a storefront facade program like we did last year, the holiday and seasonal decorations, but more we're looking to make more of a permanent installation. We're looking to bring on part-time city ambassadors that would basically help pick up garbage throughout the urban core during the week. And then on the weekends, they would help direct people to parking and direct people to the Maritime Aquarium and special events that are going on in the neighborhoods. We're looking at additional banners, possibly to highlight some of the Parks and Rec work that's going on. Looking at additional public art initiatives and local programming in the urban core. When we say local programming, we're thinking it could be a busker for 50 Washington and Donovan's. It could be buskers for the little area outside the bank at River and Wall Street, thinking about how to really showcase and bring people into the area, not only those who live in the area down to the street, but also those who want to visit Norwalk for the weekend or for the day. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for letting me take the time to present, and just really happy and proud of the team's work on this stuff, you know, making really good progress.
Jessica, the ambassadors, how are you exploring that, or who are you looking to work with that?
So we actually talked with Open Doors, and we talked to a few different nonprofits in the Sono area to know if they might be interested in working with us on something like this. We probably would post the part-time positions through the city and the HR department, but we've definitely been connecting with nonprofits to see if they might be interested in working with us on this.
Okay. So it's the same program that I think the director had talked to me about, that specifically, I think, you know, the effort was sort of for the Ely, Lexington area with some of the folks from the shelter. But this idea was, the shelter did something like this several years ago with, I forget his name, one of the past directors. I don't know if that was shared with you or not. And I believe they used, they paid open, you know, shelter residents a stipend to do some cleanup in the South Newark area. And I believe the mayor at the time also, and I think it was Knopp, also used them, you know, had them go in other parts of the city. So it's a very good thing, and it's unfortunate that it didn't keep going. But I'd love to hear more about that, because I think it's very important to get folks that live in the community to take pride in their community and be compensated just like you would anybody else. But I think that's a good idea to bring back, a good initiative to bring back.
Any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Jess,
Yes.
do we have anything in the city, either city sponsored or, you know, any other agency or group where they have a contest for the holiday season where you decorate your storefront? And then, you know,
Yeah, so I think actually the Wall Street Neighborhood Association runs a contest that is like that, where they actually do like a holiday lighting contest where they encourage all the storefronts along Wall Street to decorate their decorate their facade. And then I don't know that they do a contest or that they vote on it, but I do know that they definitely hold some sort of event around it.
Yeah, I just know that in other communities, they actually have a contest where you win first place or you win second place, and it becomes pretty interesting and exciting because the one store is trying to outdo the other, and it might be something we should consider here.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, before we wrap this up, Jessica, and I know it's not on the agenda, but I'd like to know if there's anything going on with the Webster Street lot. Have we moved forward with that in any way?
Yeah, so we are talking about releasing an RFQ that would basically set forth some of the parameters of the Webster Street lot, including some descriptors on parking and some descriptors on what's been proposed in the past. And the idea for the RFQ is to be able to get responses from developers that would be able to provide ideas for us to be able to look at in order to be able to shape an RFP with a little bit more of a concrete idea of what's potentially possible to move forward. So I do know that we were talking about the Webster Street lot RFQ probably not this week, but late last week. And the redevelopment agency is gearing up to be able to release that RFQ. So I do think that it is in the books to be released in the next week or two.
Oh, that's great news. Okay. Thank you. Is there any other comments? Any other questions from the committee? All right. Well, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I know you've had a good stretch without a meeting, and hopefully this one wasn't so bad. You could all go eat some dinner and spend some time with your family. So with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Barbara. All in favor? Unanimous.